Welcome to the Porecast. I'm your host, Carly Harmson. As a licensed master esthetician with nearly 2 decades of experience, I feel confident to meet you here every week to educate about the latest trends and must-have products, as well as to decode the science and demystify the overwhelming world of skincare. Whether you're a wide-eyed, curious beginner or you're a veteran skincare pro, this is the podcast for you. So grab your favorite face mask and discover with me someone who's not only a skincare guru, but also a card-carrying member of Skincare Obsessed, just like you. Get ready for this episode of the podcast, starting now. Happy spring! I love this time of year so much when everything starts to warm up, the sun shines, and life seems to burst, blossom, and bloom. I don't know about you, but in the spring, it almost feels like the real new year. You know what I mean? And actually, according to historic calendars in both the East and the West, yes, it is, in fact, the new year. Even the zodiac, if you're into that sort of thing, would indicate that this is the new year. I find myself invigorated, rejuvenated, remotivated. I once again reaffirm my goals and lock down some habits and rituals. I just love this time of year so much. In fact, I spent some time out on my outdoor balcony doing some stretching in the sun. Of course, I practice safe sun, and it was lovely. And if you're tuning in by YouTube, by video, I am not wearing makeup today. I'm foundation free, just my glowy sunscreen and some brows. I can't live without my brows. Yes, I came up in the era of the great tweeze of the 2000s. So, yeah, you won't find me without my brows too often. So, I'm feeling really fresh faced and excited to talk about spring cleaning your skincare. This is a perfect time to be talking about a refresh on skincare treatments and routines. And if you're someone with skin or you're someone that treats skin, then this episode is going to be for you. And actually, towards the end, I want to round out the episode with a little segment that I'm calling Skincare Icks and Skincare Tricks, or Icks and Tricks. This will be a few of my thoughts on some of the latest skincare trends, products, techniques. I'd also love to hear from you about your biggest icks and favorite tricks for the next time I do this segment. Oh, and before we get into it, a reminder, I am doing my first annual March Madness skincare edition because, sports, who cares about that? Just kidding. I'm sure some of you do, but I don't. So I'm doing my version of it with something that I am passionate about and love. And we are down to the Elite 8 with voting on our final 4 going down this Friday. So be sure to head over to my Instagram to make your vote count. My Instagram handle, if you're not already following me, is at the real besthetician. That's TherealBesthetician. Voting will be found in my stories on Fridays, every Friday until April 10th, where we vote down to our top single product voted by my community over there. It's been a lot of fun already. There's been some upsets with some products that I thought for sure would get down to the top 4. So it'll be interesting to see what the final number 1 product will be. So I hope to see you over there. All right. Now, while we're not out of the wintry woods just yet, depending on where you live and if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, we are definitely looking ahead to the warmer weather and sunnier, longer days. In fact, today is the first day of spring, or the spring equinox. So that means that with those seasonal changes, different skin needs too. But before I get into those changes that need to take place at this time of year, let's talk about the skin needs in the colder, wintry months. Likely you've noticed on yourself, or if you treat clients, you've noticed in your clients, drier, flakier skin over these last few months. Acne maybe has exacerbated, and that can be due to a variety of issues like diet, holiday stress, and compromised skin barrier. We often see more dullness and lifelessness to the skin too, So, as a result, we must focus on hydration, yes. But more importantly, possibly in winter skincare, is more moisture. So, as quickly and concisely as I can, if I may, a sidebar here. And I promise it's not just a rant, which sometimes I'm known for, but will be relevant as we continue to chat about this topic. These terms, hydration and moisture, are often used interchangeably, but incorrectly. We'll see this out in the skincare world, not just from fans of skincare or consumers, but also pros and even skincare reps. So I want to make a distinction, my friends. Hydration in skin is meant to imply that you are literally adding water or water like or water binding ingredients in the skin. These ingredients can include, again, literal water, but also humectants like hyaluronic acid, aloe, honey, and other well known humectants like glycerin, sorbitol, sodium PCA, and propylene glycol. These plump the surface layers of the skin with that hydration. Think like a raisin versus a grape. And they have the ability to attract and even bind water into the skin. This happens particularly when the ambient humidity exceeds like 70-ish percent. So if you aren't sleeping with a humidifier, people, now is the time to start, especially if you live in a drier climate. Hydration is a necessary part of our all important skin barrier, and we lose it so easily, so it must be restored in the skin. Moisture or moisturizing ingredients are intended to replace the lipids in our skin, which are the fats that are found in our own natural skin oil. This is also a crucial part of our protective barrier function. I talk about the barrier all the time. I did a two-part episode a few episodes back, so check it out if you haven't heard it yet. Literal oils, fatty acids, and other emollient types of ingredients to mimic our own natural production can commonly include ingredients like rosehip or jojoba oil, beeswax, shea butter, squalane, isopropyl palmitate, and stearic acid, to name just a few. Think of these as filling in the gaps in that all important barrier. Now, in skincare and product chemistry, there are essentially three classifications or categories of moisturizing ingredients. They are humectants or hydrators, emollients or moisturizers, and occlusives or protectants. Many skin creams or lotions may have a combination of two or more of these. So let me just speak to occlusives real quick since I mentioned it. These are ingredients that essentially create a protective layer or barrier on the very top of the skin, almost like a second skin. And it helps to hold in hydration and moisture in the skin while also protecting against some outside elements. These occlusives can include ingredients like silicones, petrolatum or petroleum, mineral oil, lanolin, and other waxes. And yes, they may be incorporated more frequently into winter skincare due to climate and winter exposures like cold wind, for example. Anyway, hydration is not moisture, moisture is not hydration, but both are critical to healthy skin. So, can we all now stop using those terms incorrectly by using them interchangeably? Thank you so much. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk today. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled programming now. So, in winter, we tend to need to boost our moisture in these drier months. We may also need more protection and sealing in, like those occlusive types of ingredients I mentioned. And as the seasons change, so does our skin. For most of us, we find that the products we use successfully in the winter just don't hit the same way in the spring. Our skin just doesn't sing with them in the spring like they do in the winter. I find of all the season changes, winter to spring feels the most dramatic to me. And I think it's for these three main reasons. One, we are less dry. Two, we need more hydration. That might sound a little confusing, but hopefully not after breaking down hydration versus moisture. And three, we start to have more UV exposure. So let's speak to that sufficiency in moisture when we head into the spring. It is true that in the winter we are both dehydrated and dry externally because cold air holds less hydration or literal water. That's why, with just a degree change, rain can turn into snow. In addition to ambient cold air, our skin is experiencing more extreme temperature change when we move from cold outside weather to our cars, for example. We inevitably crank the heater and it blows pretty harshly onto our skin. This can be super disruptive to both our barrier and our skin microbiome. But it doesn't end there. When we go into our homes, most of us in this modern world have a forced hot air that blows heat into our homes. This is a very dry air that can further dry out our skin by leaching moisture out. As I mentioned, we may also have some barrier disruption with compromised hydration and moisture balance, which creates a vicious cycle where we lose more hydration. This is known as tool or transepidermal water loss. But we also see that our NMF, natural moisturizing factors, decrease too. We can potentially mitigate this with adding a humidifier, as I suggested earlier, to our home or our room, not exposing our skin to such drastic temperature changes. So, not being tempted to really crank that heat when we get into the car, and protecting the skin with good moisturizers and sometimes occlusives. So, as we move into the spring, though, the temperature increases and the ambient air can hold much more water, which fulfills many of us our skin's necessary hydration quotient, if you will. Unless you're in the high desert like me, we can be extra dehydrated all year round, lucky us. So, sufficient hydration can in turn balance our moisture levels in the skin too. It's important to be really clear here. Ambient climate makes a huge impact on both hydration and moisture levels. So, again, water and lipid levels. Now, you might be asking yourself, so Carly, we are less dry in the spring, but we need more hydration? Isn't that a contrasting statement? Like, make it make sense. Again, this is why I hopped up on my soapbox and discussed the difference between hydration and moisture, or in other words, dehydration versus dryness. Externally, we are drier and dehydrated in the winter. Yes, this is true. But in the warmer months, we can be less dry, but more dehydrated, despite the ambient air having more water in it to hydrate us from the outside. Here's why. As our skin can pull more hydration into the skin from the climate, remember the warmer weather with more water in the atmosphere, it can quench externally this thirst of the skin for many. This can have a balancing effect, particularly with our oil factories known as the sebaceous glands. Sufficient lipids are present in the skin for many as we move into those warmer months. By the way, I'm saying hydration and moisture a lot. So if you made this a drinking game, you would become very dehydrated. So I don't suggest that. But they are the best words that I can use to describe these changes in the skin. Okay, now you've heard of spring fever, which can lead to summer lovin'. Bow chicka bow bow. Bow chicka bow bow. Anyway, there are some researchers that have found there may be a correlation with the warmer months, increasing testosterone, which is one of the very important sex hormones found in both males and females. Testosterone and other androgens can increase sebaceous activity too, making the skin more naturally moisturized, while it can also simultaneously be dehydrated. Damn, can't we have it all? Why are we still dehydrated when the ambient climate and hormones seem to be in our favor? Consider this: as the weather heats up, our bodies heat up too. Where does this dehydration come from? Increased ambient temperature can increase body temperatures, as can increased physical activity, which, as for me, significantly increases in the spring to summer. This can cause sweating, and sweating is, of course, an important part of our body's detoxification and thermoregulation processes. Think of sweating as our body's natural air conditioning system. When we sweat and we excrete that watery substance out of our skin, it evaporates off of the skin and cools the skin and body down. This, by nature, dehydrates the body, which then dehydrates the skin. And as a result, we need to restore even more hydration into the skin. Does that seem sensible? It does to me. So, the more you sweat, the more hydration you need internally, but also probably topically too. I do want to emphasize that while winter skin is notorious for dry and dehydrated skin, guess what? So is summer skin, but for different reasons. Look forward to an episode on special summer skincare tips coming down the line in June. Okay, now that we've discussed that big change from winter to spring, let's get back to this idea of spring cleaning the skin or spring cleaning the skincare. Let's break it down into easy, actionable steps. First, spring cleaning your skin and your skincare routine means that we have a great opportunity to have a professional work their magic on our skin if we aren't already getting regular treatments or facials. You guys that have been with me know that I'm always going to tout the benefits of working with a professional on your skin whenever possible. Even if you feel like you can't afford a professional facial or treatment, I would highly encourage you to find a way to at least get treated once a year, ideally in the spring. Think of this like the spring clean of the yard or the flower garden. We must rake up the last of the leaves from last autumn before the snow started to fall. We must remove dead vegetative growth that just didn't make it through the harsh winter season. We must fertilize the grass or the perennial flowers. The same goes with the skin. We need to slough off the dead skin that accumulated over the dry winter months. We must treat issues like increased acne or barrier disruption, which arose during the winter. I even think of the very common practice in the spring of aerating our lawns to get more nutrients into the ground and to help the grass really grow and thrive. Guess what? We can do the same thing to our skin with a little treatment. It's one of my favorites called microneedling. It literally almost is like aerating the skin. And it's one of my favorite ways to bring back life to the skin if you're a good candidate for that treatment. Second, this is a great time to go through your skincare and look for expired or compromised products. Some products, like sunscreens, will have an expiration date on them, so you'll know if they're expired, but many other skincare do not, but they will have a lot number. And if you have absolutely no idea how old the product is, you can always try to call the brand to provide them that lot number, and they might be able to look that up and at least see the production date, which may help to identify a possible expiry date. A good rule of thumb, though, is 12 to 18 months from the time the product is opened. If the texture or scent or color has changed significantly, it's time to toss the product. If there is mold or growth happening in the package or in the lid or in the tube, it was time to toss that product last year. Trust me, it is not worth it, no matter how much money you spent on a skincare product, to keep using a product if it's expired. It's just not worth the risk. Third, refreshing your routine is a good idea too. So, again, seeking fresher formulas with lots of antioxidants like vitamin C, green tea, resveratrol, coenzyme Q10, and vitamin E, just to name a few. The third big change from winter to spring is that increase in UV exposure I mentioned. So, we want to possibly mitigate or defend the skin against some of those, we call them free radical scavengers in the skin, that can happen from environmental exposure and most abundantly from UV exposure. We really want to reinforce the skin with these antioxidants that can neutralize and stop those scavengers in their tracks. I mentioned adding less moisturizing ingredients and more hydrating ingredients in the summer, so lighter textures generally we'll look for with new products in the spring. Incorporating a light chemical exfoliator, so perhaps a gentle acid cleanser or a light enzyme toner to slough off those old dead skin cells and reveal fresher, brighter skin for the spring. New, not expired sunscreen is a non negotiable if you are serious about your skin and preventing damage and signs of aging down the road. For my listeners that are skin pros, come to me for just a second. This is a great opportunity to create a promotion at your spa or studio that is inviting your client base to come in and spring clean their skin with a facial, a microneedling, a hydrofacial, or other advanced treatments. And also to have a conversation with them about their home care routine and a refresh on that home care routine. So, incentivizing them with a package deal that includes treatment and retail is the way. All right. Finally, for everyone, consider skin minimalism or skinimalism, as some call it, or skin streaming. It might be called for, particularly if you have inflammation, acne, or clear signs of a dysfunctional barrier. You've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. Oftentimes, in these cases, less is more. So, paring down the routine to the absolute essentials. So, that's prevention with lots of antioxidants and protection with hydrators, moisture, and SPF. This is a really good place to start. If you want to know more about this emerging viral trend, check out my episode number 8, Skinfluenced. Spring is here, change is good. Get your hydration, vitamin C, and SPF in, my friend. Before we end, though, I want to share with you a new segment, if you will, of the podcast, which I'm calling Skincare Icks and Tricks. So I want to share a few of these skincare icks that have been living rent free in my brain. And it's time to evict these guys and get them out of here. Hopefully, by sharing, I can do my part in helping us collectively just do better. I want to know if you agree or if you have some icks that you want me to vent for you on the podcast in a future episode. So please just DM me on my socials or email me directly at Carly, Carly, at the bestestician, TheBestHetician.com. All right, I know you have all been on the edge of your seat to hear what is driving me nuts. First, ick. And I see this rampantly among beauty content creators, and it's kind of bubbling over into skincare fans and gurus. And it makes me cringe every single time. And that is skincare droppers right to the face. You know what I'm talking about. It's when a girly takes a dropper from a serum or a primer bottle and puts the dropper right to her face, touches the face, and dispenses that whole dropper full. And it runs down the face. Ew, also. Then they rub it in. Where the hell did this come from? I think someone somewhere out in the ether once said, don't dispense your skincare on your fingertips. You'll absorb it and waste your product. And it just like took hold and went rampant. Excuse me, ma'am? And you're not wasting your product by this dropper technique that is definitely having you use way too much product? Listen, y'all, it is a myth that your fingertips will absorb your skincare like that. Critical thinking here will have one realize that our fingertips specifically don't absorb moisture or hydration like that on purpose. It would affect our evolutionary function of fingers and toes being able to grip surfaces, like when we were anciently running away from a saber-toothed tiger in a riverbed. You know what I mean? This is also why our finger and toe tips shrivel when we're in water, but I digress. If you don't buy that from me, then at the very least, we know that they're using too much product. If we're doing 2 or 3 dropperfuls of a serum, it's just way too much. Most of these serums are meant to be dispensed in like 4, 5, 6 drops to cover the entire face, neck, and neck. But even more important than product overuse is when we touch droppers to our face and then put it back into our bottle, we are potentially contaminating that entire bottle of product if pathogens are present on the skin when we touch the skin with the dropper. It's not great for the preservative system in the product either, and may have your product expiring much more quickly than it should. This is considered a massive, big no-no for professionals, and it should be considered a no in home care too. Ick number 2. I'm hoping this isn't controversial here among the listeners of this podcast because you are elite. But I'm going to say it, MLM skincare. MLM stands for multi level marketing or network marketing. The premise is to sign up, usually with an entry point of a few hundred to a few $1,000 just to get started. And once in, one may sell products to their network, to their friends, to their family, but their real objective is to get others to sign up under them using the product as the vessel to get there. But this recruitment process is really the focus. And this is what's sometimes called a downline. So, why does MLM skincare give me such a visceral reaction? And I'll tell you, first and foremost, this business model, in my humble opinion, is incredibly predatory and it specifically targets women and even more specifically, mothers who I just have an affinity for. And as a woman and a mother, I just love to protect. I mean, truly, this is in part why I have loved being an instructor and an educator is to train other women to have this amazing, successful, beautiful career in the industry that has flexibility so that they can be both a mom and a professional. So this does make my blood boil, I will say. And I live in the mecca of MLM. So trust me, I've seen this predatory behavior and tactics before my very eyes. It is a fact that more people lose money than come out even or making a profit. With the focus being on recruiting for your downline rather than just retail sales, it has me suspect of the quality of the products to begin with. In simpler terms, if the product is as good as it is marketed to be, why can't the business revenue solely be from these transformative products? The marketing budgets of these companies are huge and I believe are disproportionate to the actual research and product development that are necessary to get a real high caliber skincare product. From a professional standpoint, I'm also suspect about estheticians or spa owners that bring these companies into their spas because they essentially begin to compete with their very own clients for sales. I just find it highly unprofessional and just further gives me the ick with this entire business model as an esthetician. I also find it really strange that a big box store like Sephora has a brand like Beauty Counter on its shelf. In my opinion, this just further exacerbates an already predatory model because how can the little neighbor mom down the street compete with Sephora? So, no, I don't want to hear from the girl from high school that was a few years older than me, that was on my dance team, asking me if I wanted to be financially free and a girl boss. Bitch, I already am. I already am those things. And I didn't have to rope anyone into a scheme that sets up participants for failure. I know these are harsh words, and please don't come at me. These are just my opinions. I will say that despite all of that and my strong feelings for these businesses, I have had friends and family members who have been pulled into these businesses. And because I'm not an absolute villain, I've almost always supported them by buying a product or two. All right, ick number 3 are girlies using their claws to scoop out their skincare. Gag, gag. Some studies have found around 30 types of bacteria and 30 types of fungi in long nails. That's not to include viruses or parasites that might be present. Some of the bacteria that was found was Staphylococcus, E. coli, and even potentially deadly MRSA. Woof. The longer the nail, the more surface area for those pathogens to adhere to. So, if you've got long nails and you're tempted to use them as tools or instruments, get yourself a cute little spatula to get your product out of the jar in the future. Please, I am begging you. And I'm actually going to piggyback on this ick with one more added ick. And this might be unpopular, but if you are a beauty professional and you are giving facials or skin treatments, you're touching the skin with nails longer than your fingertip without gloves. You are a villain. Shame on you. Knowing that fingernails can harbor so much bacteria, it really puts your clients at risk. Now, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have the claws, but then you need to be wearing gloves. In most states, in fact, to pass the licensing practical test, you must have nails shorter than your fingertips, and you can fail the test solely on having too long of fingernails. There's a good reason for that. If you've been following me on IG, you may have noticed that I've been flexing and sharing and showing my nail art and my beautiful gel overlay that my nail girl does in the last couple of months. I just love her work and I love to show it off. So, hypocrite, right? I'm such a hypocrite. No, I don't think I am because I have not had long nails my entire career until just this last February because I knew that I would not be touching people's faces because I had a planned carpal tunnel surgery. So I wanted to treat myself to having long nails for the first time in my career when I knew I couldn't work on anybody. When I start doing facials and facial massage again in April, my length will be cut short for the health and safety of the people who grant me the honor of working on their face. If you are getting facials from a pro, be aware of those long nails. Request your facialist, if she's got them, to wear gloves when she treats your skin. They should know better, but unfortunately, sanitation and hygiene can slip once people get their license and they're out of school. Shouldn't be that way, but it is. Or they just didn't have that proper education to begin with. Okay, we can't go out on all of those negative icks. So, one skin trick I want to share. Something I am loving right now, especially as I'm rededicating to my SPF routine, is to top off my sunscreen if I'm not wearing makeup, or if I am, to top off my makeup after my sunscreen with you ready? Powder sunscreen. I am so obsessed, you guys. It feels like it seals in that protective layer. It's probably in my head, but I like it. But I know it does add a layer of sun protection and maybe increases my coverage, right? Kind of fills in maybe some sparse areas or spots. But what I love most about this trick is it helps me to adhere to those SPF best practices, which importantly include the reapplication rule. Reapplication is meant to be done every 2 hours to truly protect your skin from the sun. Not only do you need to be using a sufficient amount of product, but you should be reapplying it multiple times throughout the day. And as a practicing skincare therapist of almost 20 years, I can tell you it's not realistic. Most people cannot do that. Sure, if you are sitting out on the beach in Cabo, that might be easier to do. But if you are running errands, taking care of the baby or the children, going to your corporate girly job, it's just not realistic for you to do that, especially if you have a full face of makeup. So, what I love are these powder sunscreens, and there's so many of them. There's so many good options. They're very, very safe. They're very gentle. And you simply just dust over the sunscreen throughout the day. I love it because I can even dust over my eyes or in the nostrils, especially like in the winter months or when I'm on water, when UV light kind of reflects back up at me. I will take those powder sunscreens and I will dust the backs of my hands when I'm doing a long drive. I will even put it into the part of my hair to protect the scalp, which can be a common area for different skin cancers. I am just such a fan of these powdered sunscreens, and I think that they're very underappreciated and underused. While I don't generally use them alone as a sunscreen, I use them as a sunscreen topper. And just let me tell you, it is amazing. It is the best duo. And in fact, if I'm recommending an SPF to someone, I'm going to recommend that powder sunscreen too with it. So give it a try. Let me know what you think. There's a lot of great brands out there with powder sunscreens. Some of them will be available in your spas and med spas, but I'm even seeing them pop up in drugstores now too. So you can definitely find a lot of different options with a lot of different price points. All right, my besties in beauty, that covers it for today. Thank you for being here as always, and I hope to see you next time.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Podcast. If you like this episode, be sure to share it with a bestie or on your socials. And if you love the episode, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your positive feedback means so much to me. You can connect with me at The Real Besthetician on Instagram or The Besthetician anywhere else. And hey babe, this week's podcast looks like clear with a chance of glow. See you next time.